We'll go live here in about 3 minutes, but if you're out there by any chance, if you can hear me, if you joined, let me know in the chat where you're coming from. But we'll get started here in just a few minutes. We're a couple minutes early. Just a quick reminder to everybody, if the file is available for download on my website, it just was posted in the last about hour and a half. So feel free to go ahead and download that. You can see it in the link here. Give me 1 second. Not link, but you can see it, the QR code there, and I'll put the link in the comments. So if you're out there and you can hear me, let me know that you can hear me and let me know where you're coming from. We're a couple minutes early, so we'll get started in about 3 minutes. But you can go ahead and download the file from this link right here. So there's the link to download the file. All right, we'll get started here in another minute or two. All right, we'll get started here in just another minute or two. We're just a minute early. So if you're out there and you can hear me, go ahead and let me know where you're coming in from. I'd love to hear. And for anyone who's interested, I'm just going to throw in my a link to my bundle that I offer. You can see it on my website as well. That's where you can purchase my digital bundle that includes some of the material we're going to share today, along with about 20 hours of content on FP&A, data visualization, software selection, and many other things. So welcome, Linda, from Hastings, Minnesota, it looks like. Please let me know where you're coming from. We'll get started here in just a minute. We're still a little early. So if you have any questions, comments, ideas for future episodes, please let me know. And while we're waiting, I'm going to plug a great book I just started reading, Practical Charts. Nick Deborah, I interviewed him today, so that will be coming out on FP&A Unlocked. He's one of the foremost experts in data visualization in the world, so really excited for that. All right, it looks like it's 2:30, so it's look like it's about time to start. If you're out there, please let me know where you're coming from. We have Andy from California, Linda from Hastings, Minnesota, and if you haven't had a chance, please go ahead and download the file. You can also get it from the first link I dropped in the chat, which is a link to download the file. Second one is for those who are interested in my course. I'll share a little bit more about it at the end. But today we're going to cover a topic I've covered before. A little different material. We're going to try a little different approach. But I'd love to know if any of you have used Power Query before. And ignore any of Ron Montero's jokes. He's just here to be the peanut gallery. No, let's see. We had a joke thrown to me. What do you say when you make a mistake in Excel? So we'll let people try to answer that. Thank you, Ron. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into things. I'm going to do an introduction on myself, introduction of Power Query, and some walkthrough exercises. So a little bit about me. You know, my name is Paul Barnhurst. I'm known as the FP&A Guy. I've been doing this business for about 4 years now. I do training. I advise people on software selection, FP&A credentials and training. I do corporate, digital. So if you have needs for your company, please reach out. I also help people select FP&A software. I do 3 podcasts. If you're interested in modeling, FP&A, or AI and technology, I have podcasts on all of them. So that's a little bit about me, but let's jump into Power Query. Again, if you're using it, let me know. I'd love to know. So basically, I'm going to share 3 things. Power Query is often referred to as an ETL, extract, transform, load, much like SQL. The whole idea is you're connecting to a data source, you're pulling it in, you're cleaning it up, and you're loading it into Excel. That's the idea. Power Query works across the entire Microsoft tech stack. So you could take something from the database, something from a file, something from the cloud, and bring it into Excel or Power BI in some situations. If you're doing Power BI or other tools, Dataverse, whatever, it works across the Microsoft tech stack. And so, as I mentioned, the 3 main purposes are extract, transform, and load. In the interest of time, only having an hour, that's really all I'm going to share from the deck for now till we get to the end. When I send out the deck, you can read the benefits. I'm not going to go through all of those. What I will say is I basically got myself promoted because of what I was able to do with Power Query. So I just did a poll, I want to say yesterday or the day before, I think it was Sunday. I've had over, I think, 700 people vote on what is the most underutilized feature in Excel. Far and away, more than double any of the other 4 options was Power Query. Nearly half of the people said that's the most underutilized, and I would agree. So let me share a little bit about Power Query. I think the biggest thing that scares people with Power Query is it is a plug-in to Excel. And so what I mean by that is you don't work in the grid. You're not working in cells like you do with other tools. You have to call Power Query and it's going to open a separate window. So what I'm going to ask everybody to do is open the student file, Power Query tips and tricks. And I'm going to tell Ron the answer to Ron's joke. So he said, what do you say when you make a mistake in Excel? The answer is, oh, sheet. So there you go. All right. So what I'm going to ask everybody to do is go to the sheet called Power Query Overview. And Power Query has kind of had a naming issue with Microsoft. I don't know how else to put it. If you look here, you'll notice it says Get and Transform Data. If you go to any of these outside of the picture one, they all take you to Power Query. So sometimes it's called a Get and Transform. Sometimes it's called a Power Query. It's finally settled on that name, but it hasn't cleaned it up everywhere. So if you click the Get Data, you're going to have a bunch of different options of places to load data from. And we'll do some loading data here a little bit later. That's kind of next. First, I want to show the interface. But you can load stuff from files, from databases, from the web. You could even load something from your email. I did it, but the file wasn't consistent enough for what I needed. But you could load something even from an email if you wanted to. All right. So let's go here and just click on this button from table range. So you want to highlight anywhere in this table and click on it. And I'm going to show you, we're going to spend about 10 minutes showing you the Power Query interface. And I wish I could make this a little larger. I recognize it's a little small, so bear with me. But what we have is there's basically 4 main sections to Power Query. So first, you're going to see all the queries you have. You're going to notice this file has 18 queries in this folder, 2 more here, total of 20 different queries. If I click on a query, what happens is it's going to show the data that was brought in. So in this case, this one called Jan Cells, that's the one I just added. So I'm going to turn a couple things off here real quick, and then we'll keep showing it to you. So the second thing is this area right here. We first have a formula bar Each step that's done, it records and it shows it here. So think of this like Excel's formula bar, but for Power Query. Then we have the actual data. It's going to show us each column and the rows they have. This data set was tiny, just for illustrative purposes. Then the third thing I want you to see is over here, it has what's called query settings. If anyone's ever used VBA, these applied steps, you can kind of think like a macro. Once they're recorded here, you can rerun them again and again and again. So if you load a bunch of files together, you can clean them all up, and then next month comes and all you have to do is press the button and it's done. How many of us have manually copied and pasted something when we could have automated it? Probably all of us at some point in our career. So that's where Power Query is fabulous. All right. So next, we then have the menu bar. You're going to see 4 here. You have the home, where some of the most popular things that we do are on the home menu. So things like keep a certain number of rows, remove rows, split columns, group things, what's called merge and append. Merge is basically like XLOOKUP, kind of. If you know SQL, it's like a join, if you're familiar with that. Append is just combining files together. We're not going to discuss managing parameters, and there's a few other things here. Then we have this transform. So what this transform does is you can transform any cell using these different transform options. So it's going to transform a column. Here, you're going to have many of the same functions on the transform page, but when you perform it, it's going to add a new column. So I'll show an example of what I mean. So we're going to come in here, and your data may be slightly different than mine. You may have 2 steps here. You may have a source step, and you may have a change type step. I have that turned off. So what I'm going to show here is where you see the ABC 1, 2, 3, and then we'll do a couple simple transformations so you see the basics of Power Query before we do specific exercises. If I click here, it gives me a list of data types. You have to assign data types in Power Query. You don't have to do that in Excel. It's going to assume. You can apply styles on top of data in Excel, but it's still, the underlying data doesn't change. So here it actually will change it. So if I select this first column, products, I want that to be text. I'm going to come down here and select text. This next one, I don't know how to, I am not able to make the Power Query. Let me see if I can make it any bigger. I don't think I can make it bigger. Let's see. I know it's small. I've done training several times with the smallness. You'll have to do your best to follow along. I get it small. I don't have a way to enlarge it. Let me see if I can change the resolution. I don't know that we'll get a huge amount, but we'll give it a try. Give me a second here. I don't think it made any difference. I just changed the resolution. I can try one more time. I could also, let's see if this does anything. No, let's try it to my other monitor here. Let's see. All right, that should hopefully help a little bit. I did change the scale. Ooh, all right. Although let me change the scale back on my other monitor. Otherwise, I can't work. So give me a minute here. And let me know if that's better for you. Let me see. All right. Is that a little easier to see? All right. There we go. I changed the scale on it. All right. So here we change this to be text. Here, we're going to make it date. You can see it changed it to a date. Quantity will make a whole number. Price will make currency. So you could see you assign your own data types. Now we're just going to do one or two simple transformations so you can see how that works. And then we'll have specific tasks we're going to do. So here, let's say I wanted to add a column. So create a new column that showed just the month. I can come here to date. I can come to month. And I can say, give me the month. And it inserts a new column called month. I could come back and I could say, I also want name of month. So I have a separate column now. You can see right there with the name of the month. Oh, oops, I accidentally transformed the column. So what I want to do is I wanted to add a new column. So I deleted that step. It goes away. We're going to come to add column, come to date, come to month, and add name of month. And so there we go. I now have month name. So those are examples of things where I can transform. We'll show several others. And then this last thing here, the view, you have some things called column distribution, column quality. So if you go to view and click on column quality, it will show you if you have errors in your data. When you have thousands and thousands of records, that can be really helpful to see. And then the last thing is you have this advanced editor. This is the actual code it writes on the back end. It's called M code. And so it always starts with the let statement. It always ends with an in, and you can see each step it's doing. Each of these steps are these functions right here. So notice where it says table dot add column inserted month. That's this step right here. So, and if you want to see the full thing, because I enlarged this a little bit, you have to click down, but you can see the full piece it wrote when I inserted the month name. So that is a little bit there. I'm going to close this. Now, what I do worry about, yeah, that's what I feared. I'm going to have to adjust all my sizes here because they're going to be too big, but we'll manage that. All right. So the first thing I want to show you how to do is how do you load data? I'm going to make this a little smaller. Load data. So you should have received a zip file. In the zip file, there was a January CSV. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete this right here. And we're going to, so that table goes away and we're going to load the data. I wish it was 2 feet longer, Brandon. Not quite, but it is getting a little too long for the screen now, which is a problem. I have to be very careful to try to get the whole beard in. All right. Anyway, so what we're going to do here is we want to load a CSV. So I'm going to go to get data from file, from text or CSV, and then you have to go to where it's located. So wherever you saved the file on your desk. In my case, I saved it under Excel hour and today's date. So let's see, where is today? Right here. And I have this January sales file. So click import. And what it's going to do is it's going to import the CSV. So you'll have to forgive. It's because of the size it's coming up. I got to play with this a little bit. All right. So you're going to get something similar to this. You should have a load button, a transform data button. You're going to have each of your columns, what kind of file type it is. And typically what I'll hit is, in this case, I don't want to load it. So I'm going to hit transform and it will bring it into Power Query. So notice it brought my data in. Whew. All right. I'm going to have to reduce that size just a little bit. My resolution. This is not quite working. So let me just try a little smaller. There we go. All right. Let's see how that works. So what we have here is we have each of the columns. I'm going to have to... I'm going to have to go just one smaller. Sorry about this. It's just a little too big for me to work with it. All right. There we go. Now I'm getting the bottom. So we've brought in this CSV file. What you're going to notice when a CSV file comes in is a couple things. One, you could see it didn't get the columns quite right. So I'm going to have a way to make these look right. So the first thing I would do is I would just click right here, and there's going to be an option where it says use first row as headers, or you're going to see it right here. So I'm going to click use first row as headers, and you'll notice it wrote this step called table.promote headers. If I show all the steps, so let's add query settings, you can see I promoted my headers. That's all we're going to do to this file. I could select the data types if I wanted. Since this is an ID, I actually like to make IDs text, even though they're numbers. That way, if I have an alphanumeric ID, I don't have an issue. So I'm going to let those all be text. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to change this one to whole numbers. This one here will change to currency. This one here will make it a date. So now I have the data types I want, and we've basically loaded our first file from a CSV. In addition to loading a file from a CSV, Kevin, if you didn't get the zip file, you have to go download it from my website. If you go up to the top of the comments, it's there. It's on the FP&A Guy. It's the same place it is every week for the file. So it's the fpnaguy.com/Excel files-1. So if you just go there, you should be able to find it. In fact, let me just show it here. You'll see it on the screen. That's the file path. All right. So now we want to load this file to the grid. So we have two options. We can click close and load. Well, we technically have three. Close and load to, or discard and close, which basically means ignore it. I pretty much always do close and load to. That brings up this import data window. I recognize that's really small, but what you're going to have is you're going to have four options. You can put it in a table. You could go straight to a pivot table, a pivot chart, or only create a connection. I wanted it in table, existing worksheet, and I'm going to place it right here. And so we just loaded our first data. You can load a CSV file. You can load an Excel file. You can also load from folders. We won't do an example here, but I can have a folder with 10 months of data, and I can load them all into Power Query, clean them up, and then when month 11 comes, I drop it in the folder. I come up here, I hit refresh, and it will automatically add month 11. So if you're still doing any of those type of things manually, you should use Power Query. So that's the first one, loading a CSV. Now we're going to load a few tables. So we have a basic table here. You cannot load data unless you put it in a table. So if you're not comfortable using tables, you want to be for Power Query. I have a free course. You'll find it on my website, Unlocking the Power of Excel Tables. So I would highly recommend, if you're not familiar with Excel tables, you do that before you learn Power Query, so you know the basics of tables. All right, so we have a table here. We're just going to click on this from table range. And all we're going to do at the moment, you'll see in a minute why we're going to do that. We're just going to load it to Power Query, nothing more. So now we're going to just go close and load to. So right here, that first option under home, I know it's a little small. You're going to click close and load to. And then you're going to go only create connection. So that last ribbon, and click OK. Now, what I want you to notice when we do that, on the side here for queries and connections, we will have a new connection over here. So it's going to show it here with the table name. And it's not quite scrolling all the way down. Let me see if I can get, because of my size, it's not quite giving me the full window, but you can see all of them here. It is one of them. We'll get into it a little later, so that's okay. I'm going to close the ribbon for the moment. We're going to do the same for February. I want you to come to Data, from Table Range, and you're just going to click Close and Load To, Only Create Connection. The reason we're doing this is I will show you next how you can work on these files and do things like appending, combining them together, joins. We just need to get them in Power Query. So I recognize this is a little repetitive, but it's worth it because you start to learn Power Query. Now you're going to load all three of these files, same way as we did before. So you're going to click here. You're going to go to, not from web, sorry, that was a mistake. From Table Range, you're going to go Close and Load To. You're going to say Only Create Connection. You're going to click OK. You're going to load this one. So in total, we're loading 5 tables. And we will do tasks against each of them. Close and Load To, Only Create Connection, Get Data from Table Range. We're going to let this one load. You're going to click Close and Load To. And right now we're going to do Only Create Connection. So what you're going to notice is all 5 of those will show up in your Queries and Connection task pane. Mine is not running as quick as I want. I think it's the display size. It's having a little bit of not rendering it as it normally would, but that is okay. You should see it on your end. And so what we've done is we've now loaded 5 files. The first 2, we're going to show you how to append. So you see this data here. We're going to delete it right here. So why did it? Let me just clear it. All right, there we go. So I've deleted it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back into Power Query. So I'm going to go to Data, Queries and Connections. Oh, is it going to show my connections? Let me try something here real quick with my resolution. See if I can get it to show right for 1 second. Yeah. So when I change the scale, it shows what I need to see. I'll change it back here in a minute. All right. So what you're going to notice is I have all my queries here. I recognize they're really small, but I can enter any of these queries by right-clicking and clicking Edit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to change my display size just a little bit here. All right, make it a little bigger. So now we're in our January data. You can see February. You can see the SKU list has been loaded, the store list, and this state provenance list. So what I want to do is I want to combine January and February together. So all I have to do is click on either month. We'll do January in this case. Come up here to Append Queries where it says Append right here. Append Queries as New. And then you're going to see it brings up this append box where it says concatenate rows from 2 tables into a single table. If you click 3, it allows you to select the ones you want. You can do 3 or more. We'll do 3 or more for now. Come down and find February and add it. So even though we click 3 or more, you could still use it for 2. I don't know why they don't just have 1 radio button here, but that's how they built it. So what this is saying is we want to append these 2 tables together. So when we click OK, it's going to create a new query where it combined the January and the February data together, basically. So you can see where it did that. So what we've done now is it called it append 1. So we'll just rename it and call it maybe Q1 cells, or we could call it 2025, 2024, whatever the appropriate name is. We'll name it. and we could make any changes we want to it. Right now, we're not going to. I just want to show you how to append data. It's as simple as that. If I had 3 months, I could do that. And so you could start appending things together is the idea. So now I'm going to close and load that, and we're going to put it right here. Oh, oops, I put close and load. I did not do that right. I did it as a create a connection only. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to load to here. I'm going to change it to table. So what you can do is you can right click here and change your load. There's an option right under refresh called load to. I'm going to change it to load to a table, existing worksheet, put it in B8. And you'll see I now have January and February combined together. I didn't change the data types. I just want to show you how you combine them together. All right. So I'm going to close this. What we've done so far is we've done a brief overview of what Power Query is. We then loaded a CSV file. We loaded 5 other files. We appended January and February together. Now we're going to see how you can join stuff. But before I do that, I want to explain how the join works. So basically a join is it's combining the 2 tables together. So an example of that would be when I do a join, and I'm just going to show it here. What it's doing is I'm joining the SKU name or the SKU number with the SKU ID here. So I can join those together, and then I can return any column here. So unlike a lookup, it allows you to select every single column once you've joined things. And you can join it on multiple criteria. So what we're going to do here in a minute is we're going to show you how join works through some examples, and then we'll do some together. So Power Query, and I'll make this a little bigger here, has 6 join types. It has what's called a left outer join, which is pretty much like an XLOOKUP. It has what's called a right outer join. So a left takes everything from the first and only matching from the second. And I'll show an example of that. A right does the opposite. It takes everything from your second table or your table on the bottom when I show you Power Query and matches it to the first. You can do a full outer and combine both tables together if you want. So all the columns that are in both tables will all get mashed together. You can do an inner where only there's matching rows. So that has to be in both tables. And that can be really helpful. And then you have what's called a left anti and a right anti. The reality is you won't use those very often. They're rarely used. I'd say 80% of the time is going to be a left. Maybe 10% of the time you might use inner and then the others. Kevin, yes, it is a little bit like Access. It's like how a lot of people use Access. It can handle millions of rows. I mean, Access could be a full database. This is not going to be a full database, but yes, Kevin, there's definitely some similarities. As you pointed out, it kind of feels like Access. I felt a little bit that way as well. I moved a lot of things that I had done in Access to just Power Query. I was able to move the whole thing there. All right. So let's look at the joins and just see what they mean before we do an exercise. So I have 2 tables. You'll see all of these tables in Power Query. So what I did is I took this table and I joined it on the employee ID. So the matching element is these 2. So if you're doing a lookup, you looked up this on the lookup here, but the difference is then I returned what I wanted. In this case, I returned everything from table B. Did a left join, said bring them all in. You'll notice it only gave me records for 3 and 4. Didn't bring in 5 and 6 because they're not in the left table. If I did a right outer join, I would have got everything in the right or bottom table, the second table, and we'll show what I mean by that here in a minute. And so you can see I got 3 and 4 from the left. I got all 4 from the right because I did a right outer join. If I do a full outer join, I got all the data for all of them, the 6 records. But the first 2 obviously don't have an employee ID or department in table B, so they're blank there. So that's a full outer join. An inner join is only going to give me 3 and 4 because they're the only two that are in both tables, and it gives me everything. And then the last two, I'm just going to show real quick. A left anti-join basically gives me everything that's in the left table that's not in the right table. So it's an anti-join. So it's saying, hey, everything that isn't in table B, I'll give you. And a right is just doing the opposite, saying, I'll give you everything in table B that's not in table A. So think of this. I like to think of join when people are like, hey, do you prefer X lookup, index match, V lookup? If I'm honest, if I'm dealing with any type of complex data, I prefer the join feature in Power Query because it's lookup on steroids is the way I think, kind of a way I describe it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to join some data together. So I'm going to delete this table, but we're going to create this table. And we may have to clean up a few things to do it. We will see if all our change types match. So I'm going to delete that for now. We're going to go back into our data. So I'm going to click Queries and Connections. We're going to come down here and we're going to go to our Q1 cells. So come to that and click Edit. If anyone needs me to follow along or if you have questions, please feel free to ask. I'll take a minute and tell a quick joke before we keep going. So does anybody know how the average FP&A professional describes their job? We'll see if anyone knows that one. The average FP&A professional describes their job as they spend 80% of their time cleaning data, hence why Power Query reduced that to 40%, and 20% of their time complaining about the data they clean. All right. So if anyone has questions, please feel free to ask. So now we are in our combine table. So what I want to do is I want to do a join, and we may have to clean up the data. We'll find out here. We're going to try doing it and see if it will work. So go to Merge Queries and just click Merge Queries. What that does is new creates a new query. Merge adds a new step to an existing query. So we're going to try to add a step. And you notice we have the data here. We're going to select SKU list. So notice right now in our original data, we don't have the SKU name. I want to add that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click SKU number to SKU ID. Notice it matched all 120 records. So we now have a match. We're going to click OK. And we then see this thing where it shows the table. If you click on the table here, it would actually take you into the table. We don't want that, but it would take you into the record. So I'm going to hit X, and we're going to come back to our table. And if you click this double little button here, we can decide what fields we want. Well, I already have the SKU ID, so I don't need the SKU name. I click off on the original name, and now I've brought in the SKU name for all 120 records, similar to an X lookup. But let's keep going. So now I'm going to do merge queries again. And next time I'm going to bring in the store list. So I'm going to come down here to store list. I'm going to match the store ID to the store ID, all 120 match. I'm going to click OK. Created a new step again. Now we're going to click on it. I want the store name, but not the store ID. So I'm going to click OK. And now I've brought in the store names. I have that in my data. And the last thing we're going to do is Providence state list. So we're going to do merge query again. We're going to do Providence state list. And you'll notice in this case, we're going to match the abbreviation with the state. And we can bring in any of these three fields. So we'll click OK. And in this case, maybe I want the actual name of the state and the country. So I'll go ahead and bring those in. That's how joins work. Now I could go and I could get rid of these columns. So I could say remove. They're not removed from the underlying data. They're just removed from the query. Remove. I can always bring them back. You can see the steps right here. and remove. I could have highlighted and removed all three at once. If I don't want this, I could remove this as well. And now I've said I would rather have these fields. And so now I can move things around. Let's say maybe I want the country first. I can move that to the front by just dragging it and putting it where I want. So maybe I want country, and then I want name, which is basically state. Then I want store name. I'll drag that one up. And there's other ways I could reorder these, but this is probably easiest. And we'll do SKU name. So now I've put them in the order I want, and I can do any other cleaning up I want to the data. For example, where this says name, I don't want it to say name. So I can double click on it and I could change it to state or /provenance. I think there's some Canada in here. So we'll do that. I could change each of these date types if I wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and leave them for simplicity. But now I can close and load this. So I'm going to click close and load. And you'll notice because I click close and load, not close and load to, it should have loaded it to a new sheet. But let's see. Give me 1 second here. I don't believe it loaded it here, which is where I'd normally put it. I don't know where, not sure where it loaded it. So I'm going to go to data. And I got to change my resolution here real quick. All right. So now we have our Q1. Oh, I know where, because I worked off the appended file. You'll just notice it's now here. I could move it if I wanted. I forgot that's what I did instead of creating a new query. I could have created a new query. So those are kind of some of the basics of Power Query. Now I'm going to show my favorite tip. And I imagine some of you have dealt with this. So we've covered so far, we've done the interface. We've shown some basic transformations. We showed you how to append and how to join data. Now, I want to show how to on-pivot data. How many of you have ever had data that's like this and you want it to look like this? I'm hoping everybody. Because here's what happens. Let's take this and insert it into a pivot table. So I'm just going to put it right here on the existing worksheet as a pivot table. So I'm going to stick it right here. Click OK. And notice what happens. I can put sales reps in the rows, but the data, I have to drag this down for every single month. Not very efficient. If I had like 30 of those, why am I dragging them down 30 times? I should have a month column and an amount column. So now create a pivot table with this one. Insert pivot table from table range. We'll do it in an existing worksheet. And look how much cleaner this is. I put the sales reps there. I put the month in the columns. I put the amount here. And if these months were named appropriately, it would be even cleaner. But you get the basic idea. Instead of having to put this 3 times and showing sum, I just put the amount. So being able to quickly on-pivot data, being able to take it from what's called crosstab to normalized or on-pivoted data is really valuable. So what we're going to do, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this right here. You can go ahead and delete it. We're going to take this data right here, and I'm going to show you how to on-pivot it. We're going to add a record, and I'm going to show you I'll automatically refresh. So come here, go to Data, click From Table Range. You're going to bring it into Power Query. I know that's a little small, so I'll make it a little bigger here. Kind of just switching back and forth. All right. So all I need to do here is I'm going to highlight my first 2 columns. So you can just do a shift. You want them to be green. Shift and your mouse, right click, and there's these cool features called on pivot columns, on pivot other columns, on pivot only selected columns. What I want to do is I want to on pivot other columns because I'm trying to take all the dates and make them rows instead of columns. So when I do that, it now took all 12 months and added them as if they were rows. So now I can come in here and change this to be date by double clicking on it. I can change this to be amount. I would change this to be a date type. So Excel will recognize it as a date. I'll change this to be currency. I'll change this one to be text. And I'm going to change this account instead of a number. I'm going to change it to text because I like my IDs to be text. All right. So now I can close and load this. So let's go ahead and close and load two. And this is where the magic happens. I am going to real quick change this back. All right. So now I'm going to do it in the existing worksheet. I'm going to put it down here, click OK, and notice there's all my data. I could fix that column. It's a little bigger, but that's just formatting. That has nothing to do with Power Query. So I have the data. Now what I want to show you, what if I add a new month? So we're going to add 1/31/2026. And I'm actually going to add it as just 26, so it's the same header as the others. And I'm going to copy the prior month data here. Now watch what happens. When I right-click here and hit refresh, it now added January. There you can see it right there. January 2026, January 2026, January 2026. So the on-pivot feature is one of the best features in Power Query. That and being able to combine data. So I'm going to pause here, give 1 minute for any questions, and then I'll show just some high-level kind of popular tips and tricks for Power Query, a file at the end. We got about 13 minutes left before we wrap up. So I'm going to give it a minute or two, see if there's any questions from anyone. Right. I'm not seeing any questions coming in, so I'll keep going here in a minute. But if you have questions, please ask them. Like I said, when you have messy data and you learn Power Query well, much like SQL and other things, you can really start to clean it up. It is really a fabulous tool. All right. So now I want to show how the column from example works. This is AI. I have these full names here, Smith, John. I want to convert them so it's John space Smith. What happens if the base data, if your base file changes and you hit refresh, it's going to pull that file in. If you eliminate columns, you could have problems. There are ways you can work around that in Power Query. There are things you can do to protect the titles changing. That gets much more advanced. What's a use case of on-pivot and FP&A daily work? If you get any summarized data that you want to put into a pivot table. That's where I use it all the time in FP&A. So anytime you get data that looks something like this, which is quite common, and you want to analyze it in a pivot table, you should on-pivot it. So hopefully that helps answer that question. And Linda, if your base data changes and you eliminate columns or rename things, you will have problems in general Power Query. You get into more advanced to work around all that. So the more you can structure things the same, get the same file each month, etc., the better it is for Power Query. But there are ways to get around that, but it gets pretty advanced. So instead of using the titles, you're going to do things like column 1, and you really start to get into a little bit of coding. It's not as easy to do, but it's doable. So hopefully that answers both those questions. So now I'm going to take this example and I'm going to just go from table range, and I want to show you one of my favorite features. So let me just switch this a little bit. We'll make this a little larger so it's easier to see. Under the add a column, there's this feature called column from examples. I want you to click on that. All right. So what that does is that brings up this column over here that I can name whatever I want. And I'm going to call it first and last name. And then I tell it what I want to do. So I want John Smith to look like John Smith this way. I want Sarah Johnson to look like Sarah Johnson. Now it's smart enough to say, oh, I see there's a pattern. Is this what you want? I say yes. Click OK. And it writes the code for me. So it's a great way to start learning, different things. So it split the names and then it combined them. You can see it. Split text by delimiter, split it by the comma. Then it said, oh, hey, combine them, put a space between them. So that's kind of a cool little trick. I'm just going to go ahead and discard this one. You'll get the final file with it. And then we're going to go to the next one. I'm going to change my settings here real quick, make this a little smaller. So this one, what I want to do is I want to get the category out. So you can see laptop, desk, monitor, and we're going to do column from examples again. And it can do some pretty complex stuff. The ones I'm showing today are pretty basic, but it's actually quite good. The next one will get even a little more complex than this one. All right. So let me enlarge the size a little bit here. Hopefully everybody can see it. And so what we're going to do now is I'm going to again go to add column, column from example. We'll just say from selection. In this case, we only have one column, so it really doesn't matter. We'll call this category. And what I'm going to do is the first one I want, category, is laptop. And see, it was smart enough to say you want everything between the dashes. It wrote the code for me and pulled out the right categories. If I wanted the first thing of my categories, so let's say I didn't want that, maybe I wanted ELC, I write that and it's smart enough to say, oh, that's electronics, that's furniture. See, I could probably even do something like this, but I would have to kind of, since there's only, I think, 3 of them, I could say electronics. Here I could say furniture. Here I could say, oh, wait, yeah, that's furniture. I could say electronics, and I spelled them differently, so let me get that right. And here I would write supplies. And if you keep doing it, it should eventually figure it out. It's struggling a little bit with this one. Let's see if it gets there. Could be that I spelled something different. I did. I spelled this one wrong, so it's confused. See, now, and I'd have to kind of keep going. So the more complex it gets, sometimes it can be a little tough. But it should get there. I think the fact that I accidentally spelled something different kind of threw it off. But you get the basic idea. So we'll show one more example. This one here, I want to pull the invoice number out. So we'll just come here. Add columns, columns from example. And I'm just going to come over here and type 0145. For the next one, I'm going to type 0156. And then it figured it out. You're taking everything after the year on this invoice and taking those last 4 digits. So it's saying, hey, 2024 dash. Give me everything between that and the first space. So if a dash is missing, you may have to do some manual cleanup. You could go through and manually change that one and see if we'll figure it out. But if every single one is different, it's not really an example that it can follow, Kevin. So it's pretty good. The messier your data is, what I would do in that situation is if I had, let's say I had one with a dash, one with a space, one with a dash, I would replace all those spaces with a dash. I would write code to do that. Then I would use the example. Because if they're all a ton different, where if you're going to struggle to figure out how to write that logic or that pattern, like you think it's nearly impossible, it's going to get tough for the system. So that's what I'd recommend there. If we had more time, we could walk through and do an example, but I want to show a couple more things and we're almost out of time. All right, so we're going to skip this example, conditional column, but you can write conditional formulas, and you'll see it in the actual file. Yes, Yanil. Go ahead and ask your question. I'll answer it in a minute. I'm going to keep going while I wait for it to come in. So here I want to show an example of what's called fill down. So we're going to go from table range, and the data comes in. So right here, you notice I have nulls for all these. So what I'm going to do is I am going to fill this data. So if I go to transform, come to fill down, it's going to fill everything till the next record. That's what I want. So now all I got to do is get rid of my null. And now I now have some normalized data. I can throw it in a pivot table or do whatever. All right, I'll keep going, and then at the end, if you want to ask, we can come back to it. So we have that, and I could load that. I'm going to discard it here, but that's the fill down. Now I have an example. What if I want to do the opposite? So I want to take this, and I'm going to make this a little smaller just so I don't have to keep resetting my screen. I want to fill up. So I want all these to be Sarah, all these to be Michael. I can do the exact same thing. I can just bring this in. I can come over here to the column I want to fill, which is this one. Transform, fill up. Now I have that. Now I can just get rid of my nulls here in this column. And I can remove my total column. And now I have the individual records with the person's name. So you can start to see you can clean up data really quick. So I'm going to discard and close that. And the last thing I want to do is take a minute to show you a couple things I've added in here that I think will be helpful. So I'm going to real quick change this back to 100%. Change this back, and I'll just make it a little larger. So I know that's really small right now. I'm going to enlarge it. All right. So now I'm going to make this bigger. First thing I want you to see is Microsoft has lots of connectors. These are all the connectors that work with Power Query and Excel. If you want a full connector list, you can click on the link, and it will show you every single connector and what tools has it. And if you click on any of them, it will also give some how it works, give you an example of how it works. So it has hundreds of connectors when you count Power BI. So if you go beyond just Excel, it has a ton of connectors. And I just realized, hold on one second. Let me do something here. All right. So there you see all the different connectors it has. Next, these are the different type of data types that you can select. So you got text, whole number, decimal number, currency. We have a bunch of date and time. You could do a binary. You could do a true false. Those are all options on the date type. Here's what I would say is kind of the most common transformations. There's about 20 of them. You can kind of read through that to see what are the most common things people do. And then last, there's a trick where you can, this is a list of every single function that's in Power Query. Now with ChatGPT and Claude and all these AI tools, you could ask them, but I want to show you something. If I go here, go to data, queries and connections, and click edit to go into it for list of functions. And let me just make it a little bigger. What you're going to notice that's really cool is look at each of these functions. If I click on it, it's going to show me how the function works and give me a definition for the function. And I think it just froze on me. Of course it did. Let me try something here. Let me see if I shrink this down. Nope, it just froze with this window. But so if I could go back, I can't right now. I'm going to have to reopen this. But basically, you can do this for every single function. You can also hover over it and it'll show them at the bottom. So it just froze up my Excel. This happens occasionally. So looks like it just froze up my computer. Crap. All right, there we go. Sorry, it froze my computer for a minute. So what I'm going to need to do is go to the task manager and kill Excel. So bear with me for 1 second here. That usually doesn't happen, but I have had it happen a few times, as you can see. All right, so let me reopen the file. I skipped the conditional column in the interest of time, JP, but I'll send out the final file and you can kind of see if you can kind of figure it out on your own. You can also take my course and I teach it in there. We're running short on time. So let me come back here to the functions one more time. Hopefully I don't have any issues. I'm just going to make it a little smaller so I get it will be difficult to read right now, but just so it doesn't, make sure it doesn't freeze up. What you'll notice is if I click on the function like this, it provides the logic down at the bottom. And so you could go in here and you could filter. So I want to understand what are my options for delimiters? Well, there's all my delimiter ones. So I could, filter. Hold on. Delimiter. Let me do a text filter here. So we don't want, let's just select a couple of these. I could select them, click OK. And why is it not filtering on those rows? It should have filtered on just those. Not sure why it's not refreshing, but normally you could filter on them. And then I could go in and I could see how each of them work. So this one's showing me how this one works, and it's telling me the logic. And so that's a handy little file you have, and all you have to do to call it is you type in to a blank query. So if I wanted to create this, I could go new query and other sources, blank query. You can build your own. If I type equals hashtag shared, it will bring up that list. And so I have a list of everything. And then what I did is I just converted it to a table. So that's just a handy little thing to see all the functions. So that is Power Query in 1 hour, which is scratching the surface. I recognize that. There is a ton in Power Query, but I can promise you if you invest in learning it, it will help you in your work. And it looks like my screen stopped sharing for a minute. Thank you, Andy. It took a second to see that. Let me bring back up the file when everything froze. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of wrap up here. As always, if you want to, I'll get there, Asmita. I was just going to get to that part. So if you want I have my FP&A Ultimate course bundle that includes Modern Excel in it. It has about 12 hours of content right now. Soon it will have 20. You can buy that. Modern Excel will include tables, Power Query, basics of dynamic arrays, along with all my other courses. So you'll see this here when I send out the file to people. And if you didn't join through the webinar and you want access to the file, just email me. Or just DM me on LinkedIn so I have your email and I can send it. You have this course option. You could also just buy my Modern Excel course, which is just tables, Power Query, and dynamic arrays. That one runs $60. It's the same content that's used in the FP&A program for Wharton Online and Wall Street Prep. And so why is it not show? You should be seeing my screen. That's weird. Someone's saying there's not seeing it. I see it here. Are you not seeing the screen, Asmita? Because I can see it. Is everybody, you should be seeing Modern Excel course right now. So I'll pause here for a minute. I know sometimes there's a little bit of a lag. Okay, perfect. Andy sees it. Good. I was like, I thought I had shared it. All right. So you have two options. You can do the Modern Excel course. And if you use the code webinar, you'll get 30% off that. Or you can buy the whole bundle, which is what I encourage people to buy. I keep these prices really low. I will tell you, as soon as my data visualization course comes out, the bundle is going to go up to about $250. That data visualization course, and that's still a bargain. It may even go up more from there because that's going to be 8 hours of content. I'm going to break it. It's basically 3 different courses. One on building data visuals in Excel, one on how to think about visualizations, some best practice principles, some guidelines, some science behind it. And it'll also have a section on how to think about using AI for data visualizations. So I know we're a couple minutes over on time. That's what I had for today. I will hang on for a minute or two for 2 things. Any questions anyone has? And if anyone has suggestions for content they'd like to see in the future for an Excel session, please let me know in the chat. So I'll hang on here for a minute for any questions, and then we'll end the webinar. So I'll give it 1 or 2 minutes. While we're waiting, I'll tell an Excel joke. Does anybody know why the spreadsheet was constipated? Because it couldn't budget. All right, so I'm never going to be a comedian. You're welcome, John. I'll hang on for about 1 more minute, see if any questions come through, and then we'll end this stream. You're welcome, Andy. I hope you found it helpful and would encourage you guys to get the course. You'll get even more information. I really do try hard to keep them affordable. Perfect. Glad you're seeing it, Asmita. All right. Doesn't look like we see any other questions coming through. You can always DM me or email me. You can find me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. But thank you, everybody who joined today.